Welcome to the Mystery College Podcast. Today we're interviewing Lon Milo DuQuette. Welcome to the show.
Thank you very much.
So throughout your extensive career, you've explored various facets of the occult and esoteric practices. Would you mind sharing what initially drew you to study these subjects, and how's your understanding of spirituality, esotericism evolved over the years?
Oh, and it's still evolving. I was just always sort of a crazy kid. Some people are just sort of naturally spiritually inclined, and I always wanted to be spiritually inclined, but was not very encouraged by being a Methodist. So my family was Methodist, and they didn't know actually what being a Methodist was, or it's just obligatory Protestant, white middle class upbringing. And I really like the feeling. I got a feeling in church, okay, and I sensed the egregore and sort of the mystery behind stuff, and that felt really good. But everything else that went along with it was just absolute. Even as a tiny, tiny kid, I said, yeah, I can't believe grown-ups believe this stuff, And so I was always sort of, knowing that there was something very important behind all of this, but completely amused and disgusted with how it seemed to be presented to me. And so I was always just I guess I had attention deficit disorder, because I was a class clown, and I never carried a book home, and I was if I wasn't interested in it, I didn't study it, I got expelled in high school twice, because it was the Vietnam War was starting, and I sort of felt about Vietnam War and patriotism and things like that about the same way I felt about being a Methodist. I said, you got to be kidding, so I was active in the anti-war movement and things like that. And but oddly enough, at the same time, I had a job at the local radio station. I was a 14-year-old disc jockey, and I had a band that traveled all over the Midwest, and so if it was arty, and if it was cutting edge, and if it was socially conscious, I was into it. And then when I came to California, I was born here, but I was raised in Nebraska. I immediately came back to California when I graduated from high school in 1966, before your grandfather was born. I just sort of lucked out and fell in and got a record contract with Epic Records, and did some recording and things like that. But the thing that actually flipped the switch was LSD. So in late 1966, I was playing at a folk music club in Belmont Shore, and went to the restroom between sets, and a surfer-looking guy said, "Would you like to buy some LSD?" And I said, "I sure would," And I took it after my last set, and I had about a 20-minute drive back to Costa Mesa, and just and it was that early stuff. I don't know what it was. It was well before there were tabs or blotters or anything. It was like a capsule, okay, and very early, 1966 kind of LSD, and that was it. It was I was alone in a friend's living room all night, going absolutely cosmic, and I guess I was just absolutely ripe for it. Okay, absolutely ripe for it, and before the night was over, I knew that everything everybody was ever talking about time, space, God, eternity, time, everything. I got it, okay, and it was all inside me, and I knew after that illumination similar to that was what all the great spiritual avatars, teachers, masters, whatever. I get what they're talking about. Yeah, it's the real deal. And not that LSD was going to be my vehicle for doing that forever, but that myself was the greatest thing in the universe, and everybody should feel the same way about themselves, and that the only thing that was going to be worthwhile for the rest of my life was working with this sense of self, working with this, I guess. And so that's when I got into Eastern mysticism and Zen and Buddhism and Hinduism and all of the isms that were part of the sort of spiritual awakening of the 60s. And of course, things like the Beatles helped, and Timothy Leary, and so I wanted to be more or less a first-class Eastern mystic, and eventually I felt that that I wasn't truly hardwired for that. I was more or less hardwired in a different way, and I was sort of looking for the exact same thing, only kind of for the Western class clown. And that's what got me into Kabbalah and Kabbalah, Tarot, and Aleister Crowley. And so that's my story in a nutshell, really. And once I got into Crowley, I said, well, he's a wild and crazy class clown too. And not only that, but he's really a smart guy and a funny guy and everything else. He's long dead. He died before I was born. But and not only that, but people freak out. Even after he's dead, he makes people freak out. So I think that's a healthy thing. And so I more or less, I didn't try to study anything. I'm a terrible student. But just over the years, and I was lucky enough to meet former students of Crowley's, old people. And they sort of helped me get past what a lot of people get freaked out about Crowley. There were people I could ask, gee, did he really eat babies? And have somebody that knew him said, hell no, he didn't eat any babies. This is what he was talking about when he said he ate babies, And so that's just this. I've just been lucky. I was lucky to have some very, very wonderful mentors. And I just accidentally fell into writing books.
Yeah, it's pretty phenomenal hearing about your experiences as a musician, starting out in the Midwest, coming back home to where you're born in the West Coast, and and then finding community and finding self-actualization, or to some extent through the LSD experience. Like, it opened up a door, which, as a musician, as someone who already was intuitive, kind of awakened different sensory insights and different concepts of God, time, space, and then that had led you to Eastern paths, and then coming back to more Western paths, like through Kabbalah, Tarot, like Crowley and the Thelema. So that's a full journey. And where do you feel like you've been at today, or in the past several years?
I don't know. I still feel like I'm 14 years old. Okay.
Me too.
Yeah. And I don't know where I'm at until where I'm at is 5 years in the past from where I'll be 5 years from now.
Yeah, that's completely valid.
So I guess the answer to your question is it's too soon to tell.
I love it. I love it. Yeah. So like your books are really well known for making particularly complex topics very, like, much more easier for readers, like the Chicken Kabbalah, for example. So what does your process look like when you're like researching or writing, and how do you find yourself like distilling information in a way that it can be understood?
The Constance and I have been lucky with part of our OTO lodge experience. We got chartered a lodge of OTO in 1977. We got chartered in 78. And part of our presumed duties was to have a weekly class in our house, just to discuss magic, just open up the house to members of the organization and non-members. Just anybody who can behave themselves for 2 hours in our living room was welcome. And it obliged me to stay at least 1 week ahead of the class in my own knowledge and understanding of magic. The classic, sort of started off with the Golden Dawn Thelema curriculum, and discuss it and practice it and such. And so it just put the pressure on me to come up with something every week that was at least 1 week ahead of where we were. And so it was like one of those cases, if you want to learn magic, teach it. And so the class went for 40 some years, and it became easier and easier, or I don't know if it was easier, but it became a smoother process because there would be maybe 15 people in the class. That's about an average class in our living room. And there would be adepts who not only are experienced, knowledgeable scholars themselves, brilliant people, geniuses, and advanced magicians sitting in that chair over there. And over here is somebody that just came with a friend for the very first time because they were curious, and then there'd be neophytes and masters and everything in between. And I'd have a subject that we were going to talk about that day or that night. And I would have to say something that was new and stimulating to the adept and still make it understandable for the friend that came along with the neophyte, okay? And in order to do that, it became easier and easier for me to tell that new stimulating thing to the adept in words that were totally understandable to the new kid. And if I couldn't do those two things at the same time, I had to squeeze myself until I figured out how I was going to do that. And often that came in anecdotal things, not the textbooky kind of things, but anecdotal stories, personal things, goofy things. Even if I had to make it up, that's how Rabbi Ben Clifford came into being. I just wanted a rabbi I could quote. So I made one up, okay? And that combination of teaching the things and writing the book I wished I could have read at any stage of my development, okay, at the beginning or whatever. And that's what I do. I write the book that I wish I would have read and might have knocked about 10 or 15 years off my learning curve. So I don't set out to do it, okay? I'm a slow reader. I'm a slow writer. It takes me a long time to write because I don't try to make it sound like it comes off the top of my head, okay? Because it doesn't come off the top of my head. When I write a book and when I'm working on a book, like I'm sitting in my book writing chair right now, I have to sit down and say I'm working on chapter 13. When I sit down, I don't turn to chapter 13. I turn to chapter 1. And I read it from the beginning. And as I'm reading it from the beginning, I'm changing things. Okay. It has to have a rhythm. It has to have a flow. One word, one syllable. Okay, it means all the difference because when you're reading it again, I get on my flow, the flow of my thought, and I got the basics down, but I didn't get the flow down. So as I'm reading it, I find myself hearing my own inner voice reading the thing, and then all of a sudden, oh, that doesn't work. I got to change that around so it goes. Ooh. I'll work hours on a couple of sentences just to make them sound like they're natural. Just make them sound like that. I just did it off the top of my head, like I didn't try at all. And so it takes me a long, long time because I have to go through the whole thing to get to where I was. So the further along the book is, the slower my process is. Okay. Well, right now I'm on about chapter 17. Okay. And so it's driving me crazy because I got a deadline when I got to get the manuscript in. So this is a welcome break from that. So that's my process. And I don't do it very well, but it's worked so far. Oh, you put yourself on mute.
Thank you for sharing. I wanted to also know a little bit about your process for other creative type projects you work on, like your music, for example. Does it have a similar type of process, or is it also kind of slow, takes marination? And
the guitar writes the music. So I like to have a guitar that I love. I gave it a rest for 25 years from my recording days to 10, 12 years ago, I picked it up again. And I just don't know what the thing is, what my muse is. Somebody bought me a ukulele, and you can play any chord on a ukulele with just like two fingers almost. There is no chord you can't play on a ukulele, just if you know where it is. And I got older, and I started to appreciate classical music, and I really started to appreciate the American standards of the 1920s, 30s, and early 40s. I really became a fan of Cole Porter and Al Dubin and those a Cole Porter song or a George Gershwin song. If you're thinking in terms of old-fashioned rock and roll guitar playing, there's 75 chords. Okay, because in standards, the music, the background, you could sing a simple melody, but the music in the background flows. Okay, so you could hold one note for a while, and as you're holding the note, the music behind you flows. Okay, and each portion of that flow is a different chord, and I never got that before. I heard it happening, but I just never analyzed it before. And so I said, boy, I would just love to figure out what goes on in Begin the Beguine or something like that. And I had that ukulele, and I said, I'm going to look that up and see what those chords are in that flow. And sure enough, I could play that on the ukulele, and instead of boom, chick, boom chick like the what I did for 20 years with the guitar. Uh, uh, in order to get every one of those notes in the chord change and the thing that backed it up, I had to learn to finger pick better than I finger picked before. And all of a sudden, I threw my pick away and just learned to finger pick. It was just a natural thing to do. And when I did that with Cole Porter, when I did that with George Gershwin, then all of a sudden I'm thinking, whoa, a part of my brain just opened up and a whole new flow of creativity, of verse, of poetry, started to come out of my own brain. Okay? And that's where all those new songs came from. Then right in the middle of that, and I keep saying I'm lucky. I truly am lucky, because it just works out that as I'm growing, as I'm developing myself like a infant or an embryo, I just luck into the opportunity to have a vehicle to express what's going on with me. Like, I started writing, so all of a sudden I had the opportunity to have a publisher, 2 publishers, 3 publishers. Okay. I didn't go chasing publishers. It just, if I'm ready, they popped up. Okay. Same thing with this. I went to a couple of open mics just because it was just fun, and they'd like to see the old guy get up. And when I started, I love to get drunk in the car, they go, God, did he just say that? And so I got a manager, a record producer, a record label. Okay. Just within a few months of that. So I had the opportunity to do that. And so I travel literally all around the world with my lectures and my work in the OTO and things like that. So when I'm in a foreign city or another city in the United States, I'll see what clubs are there. And, hey, do you want an old guy to... I'm an edgy singer-songwriter, can I play? And I was in New York playing the second or third time at Cafe Vivaldi, which is a famous Greenwich Village place. And as I was preparing, a friend of mine has a beautiful flat in Queens, Jackson Heights. And I was staying there alone. And after 60-some years, I had what I considered finally the knowledge and conversation of the Holy Guardian Angel. I don't know why it came then. Wasn't doing anything in particular, but all of a sudden, just all the pieces fell into place, and I got it. Okay, and that triggered a fountain of creativity that lasted. I mean, the creative part of it lasted, a good 2 or 3 years, and that's where the material for the three albums more or less came from. And that's sort of an indescribable thing. but it was all connected. The mysticism, the music, the magic, it's all the same thing. And it's all my personal life. And, when I say that the only thing a person can change with magic is themselves, and that's exactly what I mean.
Absolutely. And that bridges to another topic I wanted to ask you more about, because as a prominent figure in Thelema, how do you interpret Aleister Crowley's motto or dictum, like "do what thou wilt with the whole of the law"? How does that play into the freedom of expression you have between, living authentically to who you are, and embodying the characteristics and becoming the person you wish to be?
Just what you said.
All right, good.
Just what you said. Yes, every different spiritual system has their own way of identifying things. The Tao, the Tao Te Ching, okay, probably comes closest to putting things in words that would explain Thelema. To me, Thelema, the Book of the Law, and all of that is sort of like the Western equivalent of the Tao Te Ching. It's right up there in its profundity, and it's also right up there with something that is making an attempt to describe something that cannot be described, okay, but can only lead you to awakening to what it's talking about. The "do what thou wilt" shall be the whole of the law. It's not do what thou want. It's not do what thou wish. It's not study what thou wilt. It's not chant what you will. Okay, do what thou wilt, and it shall be, which is a strange way of saying, but my wife has come up with, she's been reading some Tibetan Buddhism things. We have a crazy house around here. The idea of universal purpose. And as if the universe has a will. And you can say, well, it's chaos. Well, then that's the universal will. That's the universal purpose. And what Christian mysticism has means when they say, I just want to do God's will. Okay. Well, you're already separating yourself from God by saying, I want to do God's will. All of a sudden there you shoot down your unity right there. You just open up the whole dualistic can of shit worms, No, there's universal purpose. And we were watching Martin Luther King's speech last month, and he said, I just want to do God's will. Well, the way he said it, you got that he was saying, by saying that, he was saying, I can't do anything but God's will. Isn't he? That means it's my will. It's mine. I am the universal purpose. And once you've bled into that realization, you have dissolved the duality thing. And when I I tell people, you wouldn't even be a conscious mad. You wouldn't even be here. You wouldn't even be sitting there sucking breath in and out. You wouldn't be conscious. You wouldn't be you if there was something that you must do that only you can do to be part of this universal purpose. And it's hard, but it's easier to figure out what you must do than it is try to outguess some vaporous, cloudy God and figure out what God's will is, and then you just knock yourself out trying to cooperate with that. No. It's close to you. You do what thou wilt. And it's not do whatever you want or anything else. There's something you've got to do that only you can do. And actually, anything you do besides doing that is going to freaking blow up in your face and drag you down. Okay?
Yeah, it's an amazing perspective and interpretation of that. I love how it's like taking authentic ownership of one's life, and anything else, what's the point? It's not.
Right. And it's not saying you're not going to make mistakes and things like that. And it certainly doesn't say flush your common sense down the toilet, because you've got that too, your common sense. And your sense of politeness and your sense of decency and everything else, okay, can go right along with that. But there's something that's left undone in the cosmos that only you can do, and you better do it. That's why you're here. There's no other reason for you to be here. And so,
fulfill our seat in the cosmos.
Yeah.
And in one way, when going back to one thing you mentioned about how magic is about transforming ourselves. So looking at magic and spiritual practice as a path towards personal transformation, can you share any personal anecdotes where your practice led to like a significant change or realization in your life?
Not that I can identify.
But like on the whole, it's like a transformative journey.
All I could say is just look at me. This must be the only example I can give you. Am I happy? I'm relatively so. People say, well, what have you done with your magic? Why aren't you rich? Why don't you win the lottery? And you don't know what a bum I could be. Okay. You don't know how bad, how unlucky, what a jerk I could be. Okay. Not that I'm not a jerk now, but I'd be a bigger jerk. Okay. And when people say, well, what did your pentagram rituals do? And what did this do? Your hexagrams, or what did your star ruby ever do for you? I don't know. Here I am. This is me. It's what I do. I make mistakes, and I'm a screw up. But I know I'm not rich. But you don't know how broke I could be. I was a musician for 28 years. I know what it is to be a bum. Okay. Um, uh, got a roof over our head. I got a beautiful wife, got a nice family and things like that. But, and I'm here and I'm doing more or less what I think my will is. Uh, I am pretty rich. I I call that rich. It's better than winning the lottery. I'd have just screwed it up if I would have won the lottery. And that one particular uh, magical operation I did to turn my life around was my first Goetic demon evocation, which sort of blew up in my face, and it was like a magical industrial accident and everything else. If I would have asked for, $1 million, uh, first of all, I wouldn't have got it. Obviously, it doesn't work that way. But what I did get was an old jalopy car within 20 minutes. Okay, it would have come anyway, I'm sure. And with that jalopy car, I got a job. And with that job, I got another job. With that other job, I got another job, and everything. And over a 40-year period, yeah, I probably made $1 million. Don't have $1 million in the bank or anything like that. As a matter of fact, barely got the rent. But the idea is, would all of that have happened had I not learned a pentagram ritual? Would all of that happen had I not done a star ruby? Would that HGA thing that happened to me ever happen to me if I hadn't done all of that stuff? Nobody can tell. Nobody should even try to tell. It's for pure will. I'm going to quote the book of the law. For pure will, unassuaged of purpose, delivered from the lust of result, is every way perfect. And maybe I've achieved a level of that by being the laziest SOB on the planet, because I am. Or maybe that's how magic works. I've never had a goal. I thought it was stupid when I was in Nebraska going grade school, high school. Set yourself a goal and then set out to achieve it. That's happiness. Okay, that's what being a grown-up is. Make a goal and then work hard. And I never had a goal. The only goal I ever had was when I made a wish on the first falling star after my dad told me, if you make a wish on a falling star, I just want to be happy. I just want to be happy. If that means being rich, and that's fine. If that means being a bum, that's fine. I just want to be happy. I've never set a goal for myself. I've never had any ambition. I've never strategically planned a career. I'm going to do this for 5 years. I'm going to do that for 5 years. No, I've gone through job to job trying to avoid going to work. And I know I'm different than most people in that respect. Most people aren't as lazy as I am. And even my morality is based on my laziness. It bothers me to live in a social environment where there's great unrest. It bothers me that I see hungry people, unhoused people. It bothers me. It saddens me because I cannot divorce myself from them. It irritates me. So I support social movements that tend to alleviate my irritations around me. Okay. Because they're me. They're me too. And call that selfish. Call that selfish when I look at you and say, I can't divorce myself from you. Don't be unhappy. It bums me out. You know, you yuck my yummy. Okay. So
I'm going to keep that line. You yuck my yummy. That's a good one.
okay.
That's great. Yeah, I appreciate your honesty and full transparency about your, about your path, how you feel, and also the accountability in relation to that houselessness. People are facing houselessness, the social and civil unrest that's going on in the world right now. So I'm curious about what your thoughts are on like what the spiritual landscape looks like with the world, or what does the future of occult spiritual studies looks like?
I really don't know. I don't know. I do know that, or at least from recent history has demonstrated that esoteric or fringe religious or spiritual thought is not tolerated in a fascist or overly authoritarian government that requires a certain amount of uniformity in thought. Occultism that was flourishing pretty impressively in the first part of the 20th century was completely almost extinguished in Europe during the war years, World War II years. So just from a very practical point of view, everything from Freemasonry to witchcraft and magical orders and stuff might be on thinner ice as far as the open expression of their thought. They might be on thinner ice than we think. So I don't know as far as the outward manifestation of it. Inwardly, we're experiencing, I think, what usually happens in great axial periods when the bright, open people, let's actually use the word, when the awakened people have an influx of awakening, which I see going on right now. On the other end of the scale, the dumb shits get dumber. And there becomes more of them. And that's just the way it happens at flashpoints throughout history. You can see it happening. Buddha or Confucius and Plato and Hermes Trismegistus and all these guys were born in a tiny, tiny period of time. They could have all had the same psychiatrist, okay? And everybody else turned into just brutes. And it seems to be happening now. Go to the coffee shop and have a conversation with the people around you. There'll be 4 morons, absolute troglodytes, okay? And all you can talk to them about is the weather and things like that. But there's one person there that said, the last couple of years I've been thinking about the fact that time and space really don't exist, and I all of a sudden you're talking to not only a saint, but you're talking to a genius, okay? And then they're just the barista. And you can tell that there's the polarity is happening, just like a cell that's getting ready to split. Now the splitting is really good because that's how things grow. But the morons, okay, the morons are this big group over here, and the bright people are getting brighter and brighter as they go like that. And if they just stay out of the way of the morons for about 3 generations, we'll be okay.
Yeah, I love that. Troglodytes too. That's a great word. So, one thing I wanted to ask as well is, because we're coming into the end of the hour, what are some pieces of advice you'd have to those who are just beginning their journey of spiritual studies with the occult or Thelema, or what kind of pitfalls should they kind of anticipate or avoid, or what are some good resources for them as well?
Pitfalls to avoid is don't take yourself too seriously. And while you're taking yourself deadly seriously, don't be too quick to completely flush the experience of group workings or belonging to a group, especially magical societies. You got to remember everybody's human, so that means that there'll be assholes everywhere, and that no organization in and of itself, if you join an organization, you've already changed the organization by you being in it. So you got to take a certain amount of responsibility for if other individuals let you down. Other individuals will always let you down. Go ahead and love them. Okay, you're letting people down too. So just remember, you're as big a jerk to other people as they are to you, and nobody's perfect. And if a organization or a group or a religion or something has something to offer you, you're attracted to it. Make the best of the experience that you can, but don't let everybody else get you down. Okay. It's probably something that you're not going to do, forever. Maybe you will, but maybe you won't. Secondly, don't lose your humanity. We are in the process of losing our as a culture, as a species. We're in danger of losing our humanity. And I'm all for technology, and I'm all for AI, and it's fun and things like that. But I'm an old person. I've seen a lot of stuff, and I look at my phone too much. My wife tells me I'm always looking at my phone, but I'm just taking care of business too. But don't let it replace your humanity, okay? Because it can all be wiped out in just one normal solar system, solar flare, okay? It can all be knocked out, and you'll be terribly inconvenienced for a while and things like that, and people will it'll be terrible. But don't be freaked out about it. If you've got your humanity, you've got the golden thread. Okay, so hang on to your humanity, and when there's doubt whether to act in it's okay to be selfish. In a sense, people call philema a very selfish thing, and I've already told you that I'm being selfish when I'm being generous and thoughtful and things like that. I'm being selfish. But if you're selfish out of fear, that's not divine selfishness, okay? If your selfishness is rooted in fear of something, it's the fear that's your problem. So try to work on that if that's the case. But mostly in the sense of organized alternate religions and alternate philosophy, that needs to happen in a social and political atmosphere that allows it to, or that doesn't unduly hinder it. Books burn.
Yeah. Yeah. Thank you so much for sharing. And is there anywhere where people can follow you through social media or like a website, like books?
Oh, my name is Lon Milo DuQuette. And at the moment, if you just Google Lon Milo DuQuette, you'll get, it'll go to Amazon. It'll go to whatever my publishers are. But if you want to interact on a daily basis, I'm on Facebook. And Facebook is sort of my podcast, my face to the world, my bulletin board, it's where I let off steam, and it's where I keep people up to date. I have a 30-minute show 7 days a week at 10 o'clock Pacific time. Even when I'm out in the car, I do it on my phone, and I read from my books. I read, I do lots of stuff. It's pretty much like this, like what we're doing, okay? Only I just do it every day. And once or twice a week, my wife and I do it. We'll do it in the parking lot, and she says her she contributes and shows that she's a very tolerant person to be married to me for 57 years.
Sounds great. Thank you so much for your time today.
Okay. Thank you for having me.
All right.